Hello there and welcome to the Double Zero Challenge channel. We do just one thing on this channel, and that is to take these two D10 dice and see how long it takes before we can roll a double zero. If you'd like to play along, please write your guess down now. Don't, however, disclose it in the comments. Let other people watch the video and find out for themselves. There'll be other things to explain as we go along, but let's get rolling. So, roll number one. And that is a 2 and a 1. I'll read them all out as we go along. And we have a 5 and a 9 there. And that's a 1 and a 5. We have a 3 and an 8. And that's a 3 and a 5. And that's a double 1. Now, although we're only looking for a double 0 officially, we do take into account any other doubles along the way just to see how many we encounter. There should be 9 other doubles on the way to 100 rolls, which is the odds of a double 0. Anyway, enough maths. Let's roll. And that is a 6 and a 1. And we have a 9 and a 1. That's a double 3, so we'll sling that on the pile. It's a 0, but it's a 6. Remember, we're only looking for double zeros. A double 2 as well. Third double of the session, but not the one we're looking for. And that's a 0, but it's an 8. And that's a 6 and a 9. And that is a 2 and a 1. We have there a 6 and a 3. And that's an 8 and a 5. A 6 and a 3 there. And that's a 4 and a 2. A 6 and a 5. And we have there a 3 and a 7. And that's a 5 and a 4. That is a 6 and a 3. And we have a double 7 there, so we'll put that on the pile. And we continue. A 8 and a 3. And we have there a 9 and a 6. And that's a double 1, our fifth double of the session. And a 3 and a 3. And 3 plus 3 is 6, which is our sixth double. But not quite the one we're after. It's a double 0 challenge, not the double 1 challenge. That is a 9 and a 2. Although, oh, excuse me. Sorry. If you're a regular viewer, you'll know that there is minimal editing here. So if anything happens like that, you will likely hear it. Anyway, busy explaining the odds are the same no matter which double you're looking for. But the dice gods do play with us. That is a 9 and a 7. They'll give you any other double but. And that's a 9 and an 8. And we have a 4 and a 9. a 6 and a 4, and that's a 2 and a 1. A 1 and a 3, and that's a 3 and a 9. It's a 0, but it's a 4. A 0, but a 2. That's a 6 and a 7, and that's a 5 and a 1. A 4 and 8, and that's a 0, but it's a 7. That's a 4 and a 1, and we have a 9 and a 1. That's a 0, but it's a 9. And that's an 8 and a 3. Now, as we approach 50 rolls, in a few minutes, we're going to do a double hander roll. We do that on every multiple of 50, just to see really if it makes any difference. But that is coming up shortly after these next few. So that's a 1 and a 6. And that's an 8 and a 6. That's a 0, but it's a 5. And that's a 5 and a 7. And the double hander for 50, we have a double 1. We put that on the pile and we carry on for 100 rolls. 4 and 6. And that's an 8 and a 1. We have a 3 and a 1. And that's a 1 and a 5. It's a 0, but it's a 2. And that's a 2 and an 8. And we have a 7 and an 8. A double 2, bringing us up to 8 doubles in the session, but not the elusive double 0. That is a 6 and a 4. And we have a 1 and a 3. And that's a 0, but it's a 5. And that's a 0, but an 8. And that's a 5 and a 4. Double 4, ninth one of the session. It's a 0, but it's a 7. It's a 5 and a 1. A 5 and a 4. 7 and 3. And we have a double 8, 10th double of the session after 120 rolls. So roughly what you'd expect statistically, but as any lottery player knows, hypothetical odds don't necessarily match the real world. So we carry on. And that's a 0, but it's a 7. Oh, so that was 119 earlier. That's 120. A 2 and a 7. And we have a 2 and a 6. That's a double 8, a 7 and a 6. That's a 0, but it's a 5. A 5 and a 7. And that's a 2 and a 7. And that is a 6 and a 4. And a 1 and a 3. And that is a double 6, which would be great if these were d6s. And that's a 0, but it's a 1. And a double 3. And a 7 and a 3. And that's a 0, but it's a 9. 4 and a 6. 7 and 1. 4 and a 2. 2 and a 5. And we have a 4 and a 1. That's a 3 and a 7. And an 8 and a 7. That's a 0, but it's a 1. That's a 0, but it's a 6. That's a 5 and a 4. A 6 and a 5 are coming up for roll number 100 shortly, and that means another double hander. 7 and 8. And that is a 6 and a 7. I know they've got a little line, but sometimes I can't mentally rotate them. That's a 6 and a 1. We have an 8 and a 1, and for the 100th roll, it's an 8 and a 6. So we carry on for 150 rolls. And that's a 0, but it's an 8. It's a 3 and a 2. And that's a 9 and a 6. That's a 0, but it's a 7. There we go. And that's a double 8. Just make that a bit clearer. There we go. And that's a 0, but it's a 4. And that's a 4 and a 1. A 6 and a 9. And that's a 6 and an 8. And that is a 6 and a 3. Oops. It's a 1 and a 2. Oh, goodness sake. Don't know how to hold the cup. There we go. A 2 and a 6. And that's a double 7. Stick that there. 7 plus 7 is 14. That's our 14th double. And that is a double 4, bringing us up to 15. And it's a double 1. And it's an 8 and a 7, not a double finally. And not the one we're looking for. 1 and a 5 there. And that's a 0, but it's a 7. A double 3. And that's a 9 and a 5. And we have a 5 and a 7. And that's a 5 and a 6. That's a 4 and a 3. A 2 and an 8. And that's a 3 and a 5. And that is a double 3, which we sling on the pile. 18th double. A 3 and a 5. And that's a 3 and a 5. It's a 0, but it's a 7. 4 and 5. And that is a 6 and an 8. A 9 and an 8. And that's a 7 and a 4. 3 and 8. And that's a 2 and an 8. 4 and an 8. And that's a 1 and a 5. 8 and a 6. And we have a 4 and an 8. 4 and a 2. And that is a 9 and a 2. Opposite corners there. And we have a double 8. That's on the pile. It's a 0, but it's a 5. It's a 0, but it's a 6. And that's a 4 and a 3, coming up for roll 150 shortly. And we do the old double hander. And that's a 1 and an 8. Double 3. And we have a double 9. Oh, sorry, change that. Yep, double 9 there. 20th double of the session. After almost 150 rolls, that's a 2 and a 4. And that 150th roll is coming up right now. We have a 0, but it's a 5, so we carry on for 200 rolls. That's a 0, but it's a 2. 8 and 7. And that's an 8 and a 2. It's a 0, but it's a 4. That's a 0, but it's a 4. It's a 7 and a 3. And that is a 7 and a 9. And a 7 and a 6. A 6 and a 1. It's a 0, but it's a 1. That's a 2 and a 6. And that's a 9 and a 1. We have a 6 and a 4. And that's a 0, but it's a 1. A 3 and a 5. And a double 7, taking us up to 21 doubles. And that, folks, your attention has paid off. We have a 0 and a 0. Double 0 finally. Oof. So let's count them up. 150, 160, 165, 167 rolls altogether. And along the way, we encountered 21 doubles. So statistically, slightly more doubles, indeed slightly more rolls overall than we would hypothetically expect, but real world conditions rarely match hypothetical odds. So thank you very much for sticking with me, and you take care and roll on next time.